about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. We actually have some good news to report. That I'm blown away. There's a poll saying that Americans are drinking less alcohol. I don't buy that. I'm not seeing that. But it's according to a Gallup poll, 54% of respondents to Gallup's annual consumption habits survey conducted last month say they consume alcohol, which is the lowest on record in nearly 90 years. All right, I can already see some faults in this, right? There you go. You're relying on what people are saying. But they said only 54% of respondents said, yeah, dude, I drink. Now, they say, according to Gallup poll in a press release, this coincides with a growing belief among Americans that moderate alcohol consumption is bad for one's health. Now the majority view it for the first time. Although, that again, there's something wrong with that because 54% of respondents say they drink, so that's a majority. The National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism cites 9 body systems impacted by alcohol use. Again, I'm sorry, most of our body systems are affected. So maybe this isn't good news. I'm finding problems with this article. They say, all right, sorry, guys. I'll tell you what I really think, but let me read what Fox News is saying. They say current research points to health risks even at low amounts of alcohol consumption, regardless of beverage type. Those who do drink are drinking less, about 2.8 drinks a week. Over the past 2 years, they say Republicans have reported a sharp drop in drinking habits. Well, yeah, because Republicans won the election. I don't blame them. But Democrats' percentage has held fairly steady. Yeah, because they were wrong about a lot of things. They say the highest number of Americans who reported drinking alcohol at 68 to 71% were all recorded between 1974 and 1981. Well, they didn't have legalized marijuana then. So beer is still the most preferred alcohol, the global analytics and advisory firm said, and they have documented 3 consecutive years of decline in the U.S. drinking rate. And research is supporting the no amount of alcohol is safe messaging. So Gallup does not believe the decline in alcohol consumption is caused by people shifting to marijuana. So thank you, Gallup. I like Gallup polls. They're interesting, but there's a few things going on here, okay? Many of us are at the age where if we haven't gotten life insurance, we need to think about life insurance. Now, if you say you drink alcohol, what happens to your rates or your ability to get a policy? So I think a lot of people are getting wise to not putting in writing, right, or documenting that they might, drink a little bit. You do need to be honest. I'm telling you right now, if you screw around with your life insurance policy or screw around with any of these, they could very easily say, sorry, you posted a picture of yourself on Instagram drinking. You said you didn't drink. Now we don't have to pay. So be careful. You never want to lie on these things. But I think the average person now, if you ask them, what do you do? In terms of your alcohol or your marijuana, they probably say, mind your own business, or they'll just answer no. Now, assuming there's some honesty and integrity in these people's answers in this Gallup poll, assuming, all right, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Why are people drinking alcohol less? Well, Gallup doesn't think it's the marijuana. I think a lot of people are. They're, rather than using alcohol to sleep because it messes up people's sleep, they're going to something else. Rather than, or they're getting prescriptions or other things. So I think what we were using alcohol for, we used to use alcohol to suppress our coughs and cough syrup, and we stopped that. And so when I was growing up and I was coughing, I remember my grandma telling my mom to give me some schnapps or give me some brandy. You don't hear that sort of advice anymore. It's, go get the cough syrup, go get the Mucinex, the Robitussin. So it's different. So yeah, people are probably turning to alcohol less. Also, the price is ridiculous. I love Las Vegas. I've lived here off and on since the 80s. I think it is a great place to have a good time, but I am no way buying a drink on the Strip. You have got to be out of your mind with what they're charging now for drinks. And any of us who have tended bar or waited tables or gone to Costco knows that you are charging us the same price as a whole bottle of what that alcohol is. So no, I think a lot of people are saying no, they're not. Now, are people purchasing their own alcohol? How are liquor sales going? Well, from what I'm seeing, it's pretty busy. I was in Maine, and I'm fascinated by the government-run alcohol stores. And I had to pee, and the restrooms were really nice. So driving back from Portland to get back to Boston to get my flight, there was a really nice parking lot, really nice bathrooms, and it was a liquor store. We walked in there. It was really cool looking, and everything was all organized. We didn't buy anything, obviously, because we're going on a flight, and I just had to pee. But that place was packed. And that was, May of 2025, okay? So, and sadly, I'm having patients that drink a lot. And I just had another patient who called up sick, thinking he had a stomach bug. I asked him, has he had recent alcohol? He said, not since the weekend. And I go, what did you drink on the weekend? He said, well, Sunday night I had 8 beers. People are still drinking. So I'm hoping our alcohol consumption is down because it affects multiple body parts. It affects our systems, our GI system, our cardiac system, our renal, our liver, our skin. I mean, alcohol affects all of it. Our brain development neurologically. Not to mention it can increase our blood pressure, affect our insulin resistance, make us prone to diabetes. But if Americans are truly cutting back on alcohol, bravo, because I think it's not what it was cracked up to be. 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So the one thing that I don't understand that happens politically is you'll see a group try to do something in justifying it by saying, well, we need to protect that population. But if they're really protecting that population, you would do the exact opposite. And as a doctor, I see these mistakes that school districts are making, politicians are making, and I'm like, you're actually going to be hurting the individual, and you're not really working. Is anybody consulting doctors on any of this? So one of the latest issues that I guess has been brought to our attention is Governor Youngkin in Virginia is now investigating a school that allegedly arranged for abortions for some of their students and did not involve the parents. Now, where I have a problem with this is if your concern is for that child, and the child should come first, then why would you not let the parent get involved to watch for complications? Why would you not want to get that child help so they don't have another unwanted pregnancy? And why are you assuming, if you're an academician, that child is spending 99.999% of their life on a school campus and not with their parents or at home? Or I don't understand why there's this big push to leave the parents out. If you have a child that has gender dysphoria and feels that they're in the wrong body and they should not be a female, they should not be a male, the claim that academicians have said is, well, they could be suicidal. So don't tell the parents, because then that child will commit suicide if the parents don't let them transition. Well, as a physician, if somebody told me you have a suicidal child, don't have wherever they live watch them, I'd be like, are you out of your mind? If you have a child that needs to be on suicide watch, one, you got to get them into a facility, or two, if you're concerned that they have a condition that might lead them to suicide, you need to work with wherever that child is being or living. That child is not on campus 24/7. So if you have somebody who's suicidal, why the hell would you not have the family who is with them on Saturdays and Sundays and early morning and afternoon and evening aware? And you're not helping suicidal kids. It's just not making sense. So if there's a young child, or a young adolescent who gets pregnant, don't you think that child needs some intervention? Don't you think that child needs some education? I mean, if a teacher wants to take on the role as mommy and daddy, or if they feel the parents are putting the child at risk, you get Child Protective Services involved. If you have to report abuse, neglect, we have Child Protective Services that could come in and take that child away from their parents. But if you're saying, you know what, I could do a better job, let's just assume the parents are not going to be happy that the child's pregnant. Really? How many years of schooling did you go to become a teacher or a counselor? Really? Duh. Of course, the parents are going to be. And when a parent, I don't have daughters. I have sons. But if I had a daughter who would become pregnant, one of the reasons or the emotions I would have would be negative, because I'd be thinking, was she raped? All right. Was my daughter assaulted? If this was consensual, is she protected? Did she get an STD? Obviously, if she got pregnant, she got exposed to an STD. So now I would be concerned about her future fertility and what STD she got. And then what happened to her mentally with this? You know, many individuals watch TV or porn and they think that it's, you know, sex is a certain way. And then they find out that the first time was not the way it should have been. They get disappointed. They get embarrassed. They have regret. So I would have negative emotions about my young daughter becoming pregnant for a whole variety of things, especially medical. So, yes, the parents are not going to be happy. Will a parent murder their pregnant child? Well, that's what's being touted, that if you have a child who says, well, my parents are going to kill me. Oh, hey, if I got pregnant, yeah, I would have used that same terminology. My parents would kill me. Would they have really murdered me? Of course not. But, you know, that's in the 80s, that's how you talked. If my parents find out they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me. Now, trust me, we got belts and we got beatings, but I would not have been killed. If a teacher really thinks that that child is going to be murdered by their parents, you don't send them to an abortion clinic, you get the authorities involved. That's my problem with this. How are you helping the child? So what's being reported here is that officials at Centreville High School allegedly arranged and paid for these abortions using taxpayer funds. This is all alleged. So it's being investigated. But actually used taxpayer dollars to pay for abortions in girls, including one of them who was 17, without notifying their parents. They say school administrators may have known the staff arranging abortions were happening. School funding may have been used, which include local, state, and federal funds. Governor Youngkin said in a statement he is deeply concerned with the allegations that Fairfax County public school officials arranged for minors to get abortions without parental consent. I mean, if this is true, this is horrible, and may have misused public funds to pay for them. I am directing the Virginia State Police Bureau, he said, of criminal investigation to open a full criminal investigation into the matter immediately. Now, the school system, Fairfax County Public Schools, also said they launched an investigation. They say we have serious questions about these allegations that must be answered. So, you know, another issue, too, that I think everybody's forgetting, and maybe it's because I'm a doctor, but when you have somebody who makes the decision to abort a fetus, a living entity, where's the aftercare? Where's the follow-up? Where's the counseling? I can't tell you how many times I had people in my office crying because they had regretted the decision. And so if you do have a child and you're worried about their mental health, who's there for them week 1, week 10, a year from now? And if the parents aren't involved, they're just thinking the child's moody. Or we had one, I mean, now abortions are being done pharmaceutically, but I had one case where somebody's abortion was not performed well. They ended up having high fevers. They actually went into sepsis. And it was a young woman who's actually, I think it was a teenager who did it, because in some states you're emancipated, so you don't necessarily have to get parents involved. Other states you do. And she almost died. Now, we're hopefully doing abortion safer, but she went to a legal physician. It wasn't, a behind a building sort of abortion. She went to a medical facility, but sadly had one of the rare complications. Parents need to know. They need to be aware so they could watch for this. And I get there's a lot of parents out there that are jerks. Trust me. Yeah. There were a lot of things I love my parents, but you couldn't talk to them about anything and they would overreact. And I understand how people go to their school counselor for that protection. But then there's other ways to do it. If really the patient or the student comes first, then get Child Protective Services involved. Make sure there's aftercare counseling. But keeping the parents out of the loop because the child says my parents are going to kill me, there's a much different process than very sneakily going to, handle it yourself. And then what happens if there is regret? What happens if that patient comes back later saying, I didn't want it. I felt talked into. Look at how we're having these issues with transgendering, where now people are coming back saying, I felt I was talked into it. Where, do schools have that legal protection? So my recommendation is get a doctor involved. Let us guide you on what is ideal for the patient. And a adolescent or a teenager or a child who is considering having an abortion needs some family support and follow-up. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's fantasy football pocket guides for beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOC-DALI. I can't help but giggle with this Pelosi Act. Do you guys see that? The Pelosi Act, preventing elected leaders from owning securities and investments. Because of Nancy Pelosi and her alleged stock dealings, this has been a very, very popular movement to ban congressional stock trading. From what we understand, it passed originally, and then I think it stalled. And now it's not called the Preventing Elected Leaders from Owning Securities and Investments or Pelosi Act. It got a name change to the Honest Act. And with that name change, Nancy Pelosi actually backed it. So she didn't technically back, from what I understand, the Pelosi Act, but is backing the Honest Act, even though the Honest Act was named after the Pelosi Act. So Senator Josh Hawley had dropped the more controversial name and expanded the lawmaker ban to also apply to future presidents and vice presidents as well. Now, according to The Hill, Nancy Pelosi touted the changes made to the legislation and said she strongly supports it, looks forward to voting for it when it reaches the House floor. She says, if legislation is advanced to help restore trust in government and ensure that those in power are held to the highest ethical standards, then I'm proud to support it no matter what they decide to name it. She says, while I appreciate the creativity of my Republican colleagues in drafting legislative acronyms, she says, I welcome any serious effort to raise ethical standards in public service. The Honest Act, as amended, rightly applies to its stock trading ban, not only to members of Congress, but now to the president and vice president as well. It's about time. And good for Pelosi for, stepping up and saying she's going to support something that she should support. Now, I don't understand why this still hasn't gone through after all these years. President Trump, now that he's in office, he said he is going to sign it. So who knows if it might not have ever gotten to where Biden would have signed it or whoever was operating his auto pen. We're being told from The Hill that Pelosi dropped her opposition to legislation banning members of Congress from trading stocks back in 2022. So apparently she has changed her tune and has supported this, but it still hasn't been made law. So I think we are definitely moving in the right direction, and I wish we could even do more while Trump's in office, because he has been talking about this and campaigning for it for a while. Didn't get done in his first term, so he's not making that mistake, and he's making sure while Congress is controlled by the Republicans to be able to get things like this done. After the midterms, who knows what'll happen. But I am really, really frustrated by how this has gone on for so long. It's interesting. People ask, they'll ask doctors, do we get a lot of insider information on drugs? And no, we're supposed to only hear about things whenever it's public knowledge. So if a pharmaceutical company is now entering a new clinical phase of a drug, that gets announced. If a pharmaceutical company is working on a drug, that gets announced. And then we, if we wish, can go and invest in that pharmaceutical company. Most of us doctors don't do that because more times than not, the drug fails. So for those of us going, ooh, they're working on a new weight loss drug. Wowee, this is exciting. You could, if you like risk, put money in the company. But what if it doesn't work out? Interesting. Eli Lilly, we were speaking about, I think Eli Lilly was working on a new oral form of a GLP-1. And we do have other oral medications, Rybelsus, Jardiance, but the Ozempic and the Wegovy and the Mounjaro and the Zepbound drugs that we have now at our disposal have had some more, shall we say, attractive weight loss. So Eli Lilly, who makes Mounjaro, was working on another drug. It had some success, but the stock tanked. Eli Lilly's stock tanked because the results were not as anticipated and not as promising as investors hoped. And so the stock market, and I'm no expert in stocks. That's why you don't listen to my show for stocks. I just give you my opinion and tell you how I've lost money. Although I did well on NVIDIA and GE Vernova and GE Aerospace, and I invested in Boeing after it sank. So I have a couple wins, but I also invested in Baba. That was a mistake. I did that during the COVID pandemic because Amazon had gone up. So I thought Baba would too. So that was not a win for me. And I don't mind telling you guys about my losses so you learn. It's a teaching show. We teach you about things. But when I hear that a company is working on a drug, it's all subjective what investors are going to do. If investors are like, ooh, I want to get in early and drive up the price, that doesn't necessarily mean the drug is doing well. That doesn't necessarily mean the drug is going to get approved. And we aren't privy to that information. We aren't in the FDA. So insider trading comes into play if somebody is in the FDA or has a connection and says, I'm hearing this is coming down the pike where we are about to give the thumbs up after reviewing the medication. And so getting that knowledge before it goes public, that's illegal and unethical. And most of us doctors, we don't talk to people in government. We really don't have a lot to do with government if we don't have to, except for those doctors who like that whole scene. I don't. I work with governors for National Blood Donation Week. Love working with the governors. I'm happy there. I don't need to work with the FDA But Congress, that's a whole different story. If they decide to approve funding for some of these green energy firms, and they know what's coming down the pike and they're going to approve it, they could then invest before the law gets signed or the news cycle hits. And that's not cool. And that's unethical. And when you look at these individuals who are rich, they're what are their salaries? 160. Let me look that up. What are congressional salaries? I thought they were like 160 last time I looked, but hold on. I don't want to be wrong. Let me quickly. 174,000, probably because it went up since the last time I looked at it. For somebody making 174,000, yeah, they'll be comfortable. It's a nice salary. But millionaires? How do you become a millionaire? Oh, well, I had investments. Where'd you get the money to invest? How did you make all these stock windfalls? How? And so if you are going to run for office, that's the joke right now. People run for office to become rich. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be representing your constituents. And oftentimes people are voting for somebody who isn't wealthy. They're one of us. Voting in a billionaire, although it worked with Trump, that was, is he a multimillionaire or a billionaire? I don't know. Because he knew money and we needed somebody to fix the economy. But most of those people, they don't really, resonate. We want somebody who waited tables, who bartended, who was a plumber, who, worked every day of their adult life, raised a family, owned a business, understands, taught students. We want to know this is somebody who understands where we're coming from. So, going to Congress to be rich because you can make some good stock deals, no, that doesn't fly anymore. Let's get this passed. 1-877-DOC-DALI.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So many of you are seeing buttons say buy now, pay later. That sounds too good to be true. You're buying it now, meaning you get ownership of it, but you pay later. A lot of people like it. They don't realize it's a scam. Not only for the business owner, but also the purchaser. Business owners are getting smart on figuring out how to not get scammed, like us doctors were scammed. We had to see patients without people paying, and then when it was time to pay, insurance wouldn't pay and patients wouldn't pay. So now people are struggling to get seen at the doctor's office without emptying their pockets and paying up front. But companies know that they can get more money on the back end if you buy now, pay later. So I've done this as it pertains to like a hotel. Some of these hotel sites I want fully refundable. And they'll say, well, if you want it refundable, you have to pay extra. And I'll usually do that because I can't tell you how many times my schedule changes and I just need that liberty. Plus, I feel like I could always refund it and then buy non-refundable closer to the date, although by then the prices go up. But I also noticed that they have options wherein you could pay for the room when you check in, or if you pay for it now, it's less money. And so a lot of us will say, you know what, let me just take advantage of this now. Same thing with products. I'll buy it now, I'll pay it later. And people are doing this for groceries. They're not only doing it for online, but they're actually doing it for groceries and other things that they are that are tactile, that were walk-in brick and mortar stores. And they say 1 in 4 Americans have used this buy now, pay later service. This is according to a study from the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. But they say that those who have used it are more likely to engage in other fee-generating activities, such as only paying the minimum balance on credit cards, going over their credit lines, overdrawing on their checking accounts, etc. Well, you can really get yourselves into some financial trouble if you don't manage this right. Now, the concept isn't anything new. My very first credit card, I was in college. I didn't want a credit card because I grew up, I remember my dad saying, if you need a credit card, if you have to put something on a credit card, that means you can't afford it. So then don't buy it. If you don't have the cash, if you don't have the money to buy it and you need to put it on layaway or you can't afford it, don't do it. And so I never really wanted to have a credit card until I needed to move out. I wanted to move out as soon as I was 18. I needed a credit history. It's really hard to get an apartment and get a power bill or anything in your name if you don't have a credit history. So I had to get a credit card to get a credit history. And when I saw the interest rate on that credit card, I think at the time it was 16%, anywhere from 16 to 21%. I'm like, well, I'm going to get screwed the longer it takes for me to pay it. So I'm only going to use a credit card for something I know I could pay for today. And it was, and I hardly bought anything. I was also really skinny, because I didn't buy a lot of food, didn't eat, couldn't afford alcohol. So I was pretty skinny, didn't have a lot of dates, wasn't really fun to be around because I wasn't always drunk like everybody else in college. But we have changed since, that was the 90s for me, where now the younger generation is starting to doubt the consequences of being in debt. See, when I was younger, I was scared to death to be in debt. I didn't borrow to go to college. I just worked multiple part-time jobs, slept in my car. I did what I had to until, sharing a room, renting a room, whatever I had to do, so I didn't have to borrow money to go to school or support myself. In fact, when I bought my first car, I got it for $1,800. It was a Chevy Chevette, no air conditioning. They wanted me to finance it because I didn't have the $1,800. And I said, no, because then it's going to be higher than $1,800. I then sell it to me for less so that with the financing, it still doesn't go over $1,800. So they just let me make payments. So I had 0% financing, which was kind of nice. Yeah, I was cuter, a little bit cuter at the time. Couldn't get that deal now. But nowadays, with the idea of, we write off medical debt, or doctors do write off medical debt because they're not getting it. People aren't paying. Medical debt now isn't affecting people's credit scores. Student loan debt has started to be written off. So now the term debt has a different meaning. For those of us who are baby boomers and Gen X, we still fear being in debt. We don't want that over us. I can't stand having a mortgage. I can't stand having a car payment. I got rid of my student loans as quickly as I could, but it took years. If I knew that in the 2020s, somebody would be saying, we're going to write it off, I still would have probably paid them off. because I just don't want to be in debt. I hate it. But now buy now, pay later. Just go for it. You can always pay later. Put it off. It really acts on your impulsivity. They're able to prey on people. And then you are going to get it on the back end. Sometimes it's more expensive. If you pay for it up front, it's cheaper. And for those of us who still budget, a lot of us don't have a budget. You know, I remember having to fill out my check book ledger. I remember my mom using a black pen and a red pen, and I never did that. Because, I only had, $500 in the bank. I think it's pretty easy for me in my mind to know what's happening to that $500. But, if you really look at the numbers and the cents and you start to add up what you've paid on interest and what you've added up in the extra fees, you'll notice you're losing hundreds and hundreds of dollars a year. And so I think people are really getting suckered into it. And now people are doing this buy now, pay later for everyday essentials. This phrase I used to say when people were getting medical care for free by their doctor and not paying their doctor. I said, you can't walk into a grocery store and get your milk for free. I got to stop saying that because apparently a lot of people are doing that. They're going to get their groceries and then charge me later. Well, that comes with a price. Now, we do have, sadly, many people living paycheck to paycheck. And if you are, you need to do what you can to survive. So you need to feed your family, get the food, and then deal with the finances later. But for those of you that have a choice, I wouldn't be doing that. And I think we really don't understand the concept of how anytime you buy something, it's not in your favor. See, for those of us who grew up in Las Vegas, and I'm from Las Vegas. I was born in L.A., and grew up in Phoenix and Vegas. You know that everything about a casino is for the casino, where the bathrooms are situated. You can't just walk in and go right to the bathroom. The bathrooms are buried deep, so you have to navigate through all the gambling to get to the potty because they hope maybe you'll throw some money in. The coins and the chips have a certain feel. The carpet is very annoying, so you don't look down to leave. You look back up, and when you look back up, you look back at the tables and the slot machines and all that. The free drinks, the casinos manipulate us to get to your room. Can't just get your room really easily. Again, you have to go through the casino deep, so you spend money at the casino. So we already kind of know that the average vendor is every bit of its inherent design is to screw us over, right? Or for their benefit. That's probably a nicer way to say it. So that's the filter I want you to have. When you buy something, all right, don't think that a sale or a gimmick is really for you. There's a gimmick. And you're probably getting screwed. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.